Okay, so welcome to everybody. We're in class number 17, I think. Shara Yehud. What is it?
I said 17 is 12, is good. If people
So-
survive till 17, it's already good. It's a commitment. It's good. 18, we're going to live. But before that, it's good. Tough.
All right, so we're all good here. Baruch Hashem. And we're studying Reb Hillel's commentary of Shara Yehud, the Mitzvah Rebbe's Shara Yehud. So just to bring us up to speed, so we're trying to understand the process of Iyun. So I'm going to share my screen and we'll just look at what we discussed last week, just to remember where in the world we are. So we were looking at the process of Iyun. So just to begin with, Iyun is what? The process of Iyun, what can you say that it is from your experience or your understanding? Somebody, anybody?
Yeah. Concentration, analysis.
Okay. Concentration and analysis is good. And where technically, in our framework, where does Iyun take place? Which part of the brain? Is it the right brain? Is it the left brain to begin with? Let's start with that.
Left brain.
Okay, so it's in the left brain. So now where in the left brain? Is it the omek, the rochav, or the orech of Bina?
It's the orech of Bina. Bina.
Yeah.
So it's in Bina of Bina, the lowest aspect of Bina, the orech of Bina, the length of Bina. So the teacher has brought down the idea from the highest point of in the Koach HaMaskil beyond Seichel, and he's brought it down in Mashalim and different explanations all the way down to the Bina of Bina, the Orech of Bina, the lowest point of Bina. And that's where the Makabel starts to receive it and to work upwards from below to above. And that's the Iyun process. So the Iyun process is the in-depth analysis, and it takes us from that process of looking at the idea, trying to understand the mashalim, trying to understand the explanations, until we come to the point where you're no longer in the Bina of Bina, you're in the Rochav of Bina. So you've gone from the Orech of Bina to the Rochav of Bina, and you can start to explain it to yourself. What is this concept all about? And you have questions and making connections, but it's still within yourself that you really try to understand this process. And for the women who were part of the Tuesday night group, I think that's really the process that we were engaging in this last time, where we're starting to understand the concept, make suggestions. What does it really mean? How do we understand it? And so on. And then the Iyun brings us to the Omek of Bina. And the Omek of Bina is this kind of magical place where there's a transition from the left brain into the right brain. And so here it says, the Iyun, that in-depth analysis, brings a person to the depth of the explanation, known as Omek of Bina, and its inner point, the Tamtzita, like the deep point. And then what happens is that the Amakas Hadas is activated. And the Amakas Hadas is the Das that connects the right and the left brain to the right brain. Okay. So this is the focus of all the powers of his mind to connect to the depth of the idea, the Omek HaMusag. And okay, Beseda, we don't need to go into all of it. And then what happens is basically, I'm not going to go through this whole word by word summary, but what happens then is that once the Hamakas Hadas is activated, so I'm going to actually stop sharing this. Once the Hamakas Hadas is activated, so then the person begins to sense the chokhmah that is inside of this process. And so they're already feeling the right brain. And this is suddenly they're not in the Iyun process anymore. They're in another process, and that process will take them, the Makas Hadas will take them to the Omek of Chokhmah, where then they are then able to bring down new concepts from the Koach HaMaskil. So all of this starts with this Iyun process at the lowest point of Bina, working upwards until you literally come to the Koach HaMaskil, which has endless concepts. But this is where, we begin. So today, what we're going to look at is, or what we're going to discover is, what is the source? What is the root of Iyun? Previously, we understood that the root of Das is in the Chush. That's the connection to the Ratzon. But what is the root of this Iyun process? And I think that's enough for us. As long as you have some sense now of what is the Iyun process. Would you like me to share? Maybe I should share the picture that we did, and then we'll move on to the text. So let me just share this.
Yeah.
Here we go. So we have it visually. Oops. So in the left side of the brain, the Bina brain, we have this lowest point, which is the Iyun, the Orech, or the Bina of Bina, which is kind of, I think of it as the lowest point, but it's not a physical place. And then you move, the Iyun moves you upward through the Rochav, the Chokhmah of Bina, and then until you finally come to the Omek of Bina, the Omek HaMusag. And that is where the Hamakas Hadas kicks in, and it takes one over to the right brain. And then a whole nother process takes place until you access the Omek of Chokhmah and the Koach HaMaskil. So this is for the right brainers. Yeah.
Yeah, so Tzivia, we will post it in the group. I think we did share it in a group, in a WhatsApp group.
We posted in the WhatsApp. Sylvia's asking if we posted it on the Google Drive.
Oh, probably not. No, I don't think. So I'll post it. I'll upload it. B'ezrat Hashem.
Okay, so just take a look at this for a moment. And now we're going to be asking the question of, what is the source of this Iyun? What is Iyun connected to in its source? Okay, Mila.
What is the question?
So we're going to encounter the question in the text.
Yeah, so just to establish in general, there is two words that in Lashon HaKodesh, in Chassidus, is being used for source. There is something which is called source, which is makor,
Mm-hmm.
and shorish.
Mm-hmm.
Shorish is a root. Okay. And But derech klal, it pretty much means the same thing, meaning it's a place where things are streaming from. If we look deeper in a plant, we see that shoresh, which is the root, it's actually what's below the ground. Okay? But then the makor for the plant is the earth. Okay, so the root is closer. Yeah, the root is being nurtured by the source. Yeah, the root is that connecting point between the plant and the source. Yeah, because the roots are there to take all the vitamins and minerals from the earth so it could grow, so the plant could grow. So that's what it is. And anyway, it's we're getting into Ayamia pieces in Shara Yechud, because then we actually in this paragraph we do get a lot of answers to our original questions. Who remembers our 3 original questions that we had? When we just started, we had a whole, 3 beautiful questions that we had. Anybody remembers? Okay, I'll share the screen of our mind map that we had. I need to update it, but here, let me just annotate this. So this is the original questions that we had when we first came to Shara Yechud. These are the questions. Question number 1 is to understand what is his bonus, why double nun, and why Bina and not Chachma. And I think we actually answered the question number 2 about the double nun, right? That one is going up and the other one is coming down, meaning that process of Iyun, of the Talmud, of having the sense of bittul to receive, and that's what gives them the ability to draw down the concept, to lower down the concept and pass it down. Now, let's see what of these questions with this paragraph answer. Okay, let's go. We are on page 308. And we're going to be starting to read. And we definitely, you'll see a lot of trigger words that, will bring you to the discussions that we already discussed. So the way Rabbi Hillel is going to do now, he's going to use the previously learned information, what we already know, and bring us, give and use it as a stepping stone to actually give us a new insight into new things.
Mila, sorry, can you make it bigger, please? It's very small.
Sure. Is it better?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Okay. Vehina mavuar lemala. And here was explained above. Shekoach hamevi lidei hamakas hadas ulefi erech hachush. That the power that brings to hamakas hadas is in accordance to chush. In accordance to chush, sheyesh lo be'etzem mahus hadavar. It's in accordance to the chush that he has in the essence of that thing that he has hamakas hadas for, that he's, connected to. So we're going back to that chush that was above the intellect, right? That was when the ratzon is getting revealed. And if we, can bring the diagram is like right below the ratzon. The ratzon gets revealed through chush, meaning when we want something, all our chushim, all our senses are attuned to get to us what we want. Yeah, for example, let's say a person is exceptionally hungry and he didn't eat for many, many days. And obviously his body has this ratzon to survive. This is an innate ratzon that we all have, is to preserve the body and sustain the body and keep the body alive. Yeah, this is an essential ratzon that we have. Now, it needs to eat. What do you think going to happen to our chushim? We're going to have a very heightened sense of smell for anything that could bring us to food, right? So we could live. For example, animals, they actually could smell water. And, you know, people, the intuition, everything, they already will be looking, the senses are going to be so heightened because there's that survival mechanism to live kicks in. Okay, so that's the relationship between the ratzon and a chush. It comes about through many different avenues, but this is like a very, you know, concrete example that we could learn. Okay, so this is what it is. Let's read it again. And here it was explained above. That the power that brings amakasadas, it's in accordance to chush. The more chush you have, the more amakasadas you'll have. The more chush in what? Sheyesh lo be'etzem mahut hadavar. That what he has in the essence of that thing. Meaning, the more connected I am to that thing, the more I could go deeper to that thing, the more das I have, the more chush I'll have. So it's like interchangeable. It feeds each other. And we find shoresh hadas, okay, that the root of das, okay, bebeis b'chinoisav, in his two aspects. Now, which two aspects we know about das?
Yeah.
Okay, we know about amakasadas and ma'amik. These two aspects of das, who bebechinas gulgalta hanal. It's in the gulgalta. It's in the skull. Okay. So now we're establishing that the das part is in the gulgalta, in the skull. Why skull? You tell me. What skull? What this has to do with the skull? Amazing. The skull is ratzon. And what's chush? How? Well, he's giving us chush becomes the source. Becomes the root for das. Amazing. And it's manifest in the Golgotha, in the skull. Well, we just learned that what was chush. Let's go back to our file with chush. The chush was the beginning of the manifestation of the ratzon. So the ratzon is Golgotha. Okay, so now we make a chain going back, right? Das is connected to chush. Chush is connected to ratzon. Right? So that's a path of understanding that we have right now based on all the information that was given to us up until this point. You see how he makes the connection? Das is rooted in chush. Chush is the expression of the ratzon. That's how we land in a Golgotha. Okay, because where is ratzon? Ratzon is in Golgotha. Now we're gonna compare and contrast the das with Iyun. Okay? But koach hamevi lebechinas Iyun, the power that brings to Iyun, hu lemala bechinas achushim. It's above chushim. Interesting. So now we're talking about the Iyun, okay, which is the lowest of low levels, as we saw. It's like, you know, right below Chachma. It's Bina of Bina. And that power that brings to Iyun, is above the level of chushim. Okay. Kishoresh achushim hem bebchinas Golgotha hanal. Because shoresh, the root of chushim, is in the level of Golgotha, as we discussed above. Right? And what's Golgotha? What's the skull situation? Shehu bechinas makif lemoichin, which is an aspect which surrounds the brain. As we know, the skull, it's something that surrounds the brain. Ach shoresh ha'iyun, but the root of Iyun, hu bebechinas ha'искashrus sheyesh lo bepnimius nekudas Halev. But the Iyun is rooted in the aspect of the connection that he has in the inner point of the heart. Wow. What is it? Hanikra Uvanta de Liba. And it's called that point of the heart, which is called Pnimius Nekudas Halev, is called Uvanta de Liba, is an understanding of the heart from Aramaic. What is it? Yeah? What is this point of the heart? And people sometimes get confused. 1 second, my heart is below. We were talking about the levels of the brain. What this has to do with the heart? Okay? Have some patience. Text will explain us. Shehu bechinas, which is the aspect of ta'am v'ta'anug. Ta'am means is the taste, and ta'anug, which is the oneg, which is the pleasure. Yeah, this is pnimis. Shehu bechinas ta'am v'ta'anug pnimis, which is the aspect of the taste and pleasure, inner pleasure. Ne'elam, meaning it's concealed. Nekudas Halev, okay, in the point of the heart. Let's read it again, which is what is Uvanta de Liba? Uvanta de Liba, v'hu b'chinas tam v'tanuk pnimis, which is the aspect of the taste and inner pleasure. V'ne'elam, and it's concealed b'nekudas Halev, in the point of the heart. Interesting. Sheha'oneg hazeh, that this pleasure, hu oneg pashut, is a simple pleasure. Okay, bilti murkav, not compound. Okay, so we're learning a lot of terms here. Pashut versus murkav. Okay, oneg zeh, and from this oneg, which is pashut, it's a simple oneg, it's actually a hidden also, and it's not compound. What do you mean compound? Compound meaning it's made of different parts, and the parts are put together. It's not that. Okay? So now that level, mi-oneg zeh, from this oneg, it becomes makor, it becomes the source, the difference between shoresh and source, right? That becomes the source to the aspect of the ratzon, which is higher than reason, Hanikra Gulgalta, which is called the Golgotha. So let's just pause for a second. What we're talking about, that this aspect of Iyun, actually rooted in a very higher place. It's rooted in a place which is the source for Golgotha. If, when we're talking about Das, the highest point of Das is the Golgotha, right? Is the skull. But the Iyun is actually rooted in a higher place, which is the Golgotha, and that's the Oneg. Meaning Das brings us to Ratzon, but Iyun brings us to Oneg. So it's a different source. Not only it's different source, but it's the source of Das. Okay? V'nikra Golgotha, and that's called Golgotha. K'mo sheshamati me'amanoach ha'chosid, how I heard from the Chassid, Hamufursam, the famous Chassid, Reb Zalman Zezmer. Okay? Zichrona livracha, shebechinos Uvanta de Liba, that this aspect of Uvanta de Liba, which is understanding of the heart, makor lebechinos Golgotha, it becomes a source for Golgotha, which is a very, very high level. Okay? Ubechinos is nikra Bina Liba, and this is called Bina Liba. So now we have already few names for the same level. We have Pnimius Nekudas Halev, we have Uvanta de Liba, we have Bina Liba, and we also know that it's oneg, right? And we're talking about the same level, just different names for the same place. Okay. Now, wow. And this level, hu ha'ma'orer, that's what activates, that's what awakens. Oisai, this individual who is doing Iyun, it's specifically this level that awakens him, lahafshit machshavasai, to remove all his thoughts, whatever they may be, mikol machshavas, from all kinds of thoughts, velachshav, rak bepirtei haseichel, hashayach lahasogazais, but to really think in all the details of the seichel that are concerning to this understanding, right? So that's very interesting. That's a very, very concrete focus into the details, not into the general ideas and connect to the general ideas. No. It's look through every single bead, one by one. Okay? Now, why this is so essential? Because that's what actually ma'orer, that is awakening him to remove himself from all other thoughts other than these details. Okay, so it seems that this oneg comes before his ability to do Iyun. That's what gives him power to do Iyun. Okay, now that he wants to understand and grasp, which is that's what Iyun is. Iyun is an ability to remove oneself from all kinds of thoughts about other concepts and how it's connected to other concepts and all these things. Okay, and how about we're just gonna stare and look and analyze what we do have, what we do know, and looking at each prat of each detail one by one and studying it. So that koach actually comes from such a lofty level, which is called Uvanta de Liba, Bina Liba, Pnimius, Nekudas, Halev. These are the terms for that level of oneg, of pleasure, of hidden pleasure. Okay. It's interesting, he uses the word hidden because it's really not revealed by us. And sometimes we're experiencing exactly the opposite of pleasure. We're stressed about these details, and we might feel like, oh my gosh, this is getting intense, this is hard, and so on and so forth. That's why it's not yet revealed. But we have that ratzon that, we're running after it, and like, hey, why are you doing this? Because there is something much higher than triggering us, that's allowing us to do it. Okay, v'nimtza, as it was said before, v'nimtza sheshoresh ha'iyun, okay, and we find that the root of Iyun, ulemala afilu mishoresh bechinas hayoser elyoyna shebedas, hanikra mamik, that we find that the Iyun, the aspect of Iyun, the source of Iyun, I'm sorry, not the source, the root of Iyun is above even from the root of the highest level of the das, which is called mamik, which is like, wow. Okay. We just learned that mamik is this guy who generates concept from within himself. It's like, whoa. And you're telling me that this Iyun of this outsider who doesn't even have das, okay, who can't even do anything, that Iyun that he is investing in right now is actually coming from a higher source than the highest level of das. That's a huge discovery. And from this we will understand one more thing. That truly, when we're really going to look a little bit deeper, okay, boom. Okay, we actually find that the Rava Mashpia also has Iyun. Well, didn't we just say 2 paragraphs before Rabba Mashpia does not have Iyun, and it's only for the other guy, right, who is on the outside. But now he says, no, truly, if you look deeper, there is Iyun by him as well. Why? Kigam shemuvor lemala, that although it was explained above, she'etzlo noldim halevushim amashalim imele, mi'alav, that his levushim, as we already discussed, right, that's not new for us, that by this Rav, the levushim are born automatically. Well, how they're born automatically? Mitzad amakas dasai, from the level of amakas das, be'etzem haskala v'hasaga, in the essence of the haskala, right, which is chachma, and hasaga, which is bina. Mikol mokom ka'asher tzarich lahashpil lemekabel. But nevertheless, when he needs to give it over to the mekabel, muchrach le'ayin, he has to actually investigate, actually to analyze. It's true he has all the mashalim and levushim, but now he needs to pause. Mekabel is right in front of him, okay, and he needs to pause and investigate. B'chol hamashalim v'hezbeidim shenoldu mitzad etzem hasaga. Now he needs to pause and investigate in all the mashalim and explanations that are born from him, from the essence of the hasaga. Why? V'levarer mihem, and he has to sort through, birur, right? Sort through otam, okay, hanitoim lemekabel, those that are suitable, haneutim, right? Haneutim, from matim, from those, right? Haneutim, those that are suitable for this mekabel, sherotzel ashpeh elav, meaning he is going to go through personalization. It's true that he within himself already has all the mashal and blah, blah, blah. But now this makabel is standing in front of me. How am I adjusting this concept based on his kalim, his needs? Okay, so I need to go through this process of Iyun to make sure that this particular person is going to get what he needs based on his kalim. And I need to adjust for that specific makabel. So that personalization that's going to take place by the Rebbe, by the Mashpia, okay? It also goes through the level of Iyun, okay? So we shouldn't feel bad for these tzaddikim. They're also going to access the Bina, Liba, and Pnimius, Nekudas, Halev levels because they're going to be engaging in Iyun as well, okay? Just in case if you had that Rahmanas in them, like in your heart, you're like, oh my gosh, they don't have access to this lofty level. He's like, don't worry, we have that too. Okay. Right? That person that he wants to give hashpah to. Because if he's gonna give a little bit more from the measurement, what's going to happen? Lo yiskabel b'mekabel. The mekabel will not receive it. And what's the point? Right? If he's going to give less, it's not going to be good. If he's going to give more, it's not going to be good. He needs to give just exact measure, this bite pieces. I mean, we as teachers do that all the time when we teach little kids. We give bite pieces, you know, and we lay out the concept in such a way that a person, you know, that the child understands from simple to more compound concept. And unfortunately, some teachers feel like they just need to talk, right? Even though nobody understands, but they just need to express themselves, right? We're not talking about these teachers, we're talking about real teachers who really care, because after all, it's the child that needs to pass the test, not the teacher, right? There's no chachma that the teacher knows. We need to make sure that the child knows. But Anuroim, now we explain something different. And we also see that in this Iyun process, okay, that when this mashpia is now thinking and analyzing, how is he going to give over this concept to this makabel? What happens? Misoirerim, being awakened, when you fradim and being separated, kol chelke hatos, all the aspects of the mistakes that could have been in that concept. Shahayu me'urbavim, that they were mixed in mitchila, be'elem. These mistakes were a little bit, they were mixed in the concept, but they were hidden in the intellect. Okay, but now that he's analyzing, he's like, oh, you know what? This is interesting. I didn't think of that. This is actually not an accurate situation. Let me fix that. Okay, so that process of going back deeper in so I can lower it down will force the mashpia to look deeper into the essence of the seichel, and that going back and forth with his own seichel to see how is he going to project it to the makabel. What happens is that it gets filtered through, the intellect gets filtered through, and little mistakes, little nuances are going to surface, and he's going to say, oh, this is interesting. Like, I didn't see that before. Now that I'm starting to teach, I'm realizing it. And now the concept, even for himself, is going to be a more refined concept. Okay? And therefore, Nikra ha-Iyun makom ha-mizbarer, that the Iyun becomes the place of birur, right? Place of sorting. Lihiyos, why? Because Sha'al Yidei Zeh, that through this, misbaririm omek haskola v'omek hasaga. Wow. That through this process of Iyun, the omek of the haskola and omek of the hasaga, his chachma, the depth of his chachma and the depth of his bina are going to be elevated. They're going to go through the cleaning, the birur. Okay? Okay. V'afal pi shehem lemala heimena. Although they are actually above him, but he's able to access these powers so they could actually cleanse him. And seemingly it is not understood. Right? What's not understood? But let's just pause for a second. Wait a minute. Okay, let's read. Seemingly it's not understood. How is he able to elevate, right? How is he able to sort through the koyach which is above him? Meaning, for both, for mashpia and for the makabel. How is it possible? For the makabel, it's understood. How is it possible that my power that begins my process of coming closer to the essence of that concept allows me to go even higher than the concept itself? It doesn't make sense. Okay, that's question number one for the makabel. But for the mashpia also, how is it possible that through this Iyun process, I'm able to access higher than that? Why is it? Im hanal. But if what we said above, Yuvan native, is understood well, what does this mean? That although Iyun, on the way it presents itself in Seder Ishtalshalos, is below Amakasadas, not even in the center, it's all the way to the left, right? Aval b'sharshay, but in his root, but truly, if we look in its source, in its root, it's higher than Amakasadas, as we said. Now he repeats himself. The shorish Amakasadas hu b'chinas Golgotha, because the root of Amakasadas is in the skull, in Golgotha. Masha'ein kein shorish ha'iyun, and it's not like that. The shorish of the Iyun. Hu lemala mibchinas Uvanta de Liba. Hu lemala. It's above, meaning above the Golgotha. B'chinas Uvanta de Liba, in the aspect of Uvanta de Liba. Shelemala mibchinas Golgotha, which is above the level of Golgotha. Kanal, badal. Okay. Now, he's basically saying how in the world a person could do Iyun in simple terms. How can they do Iyun? How can even a mashpia do Iyun? If he generated the concept from his amakasadas, because of his amaimic, okay, how can he elevate what he already created? You understand the essence of his question? If I'm on the level of amakasadas, how can I mevarer something and bring it to a higher level? If it's generated on the level of amakasadas, it says, well, you know what? Because truly, the Rebbe also has the koach of the Iyun. And that koach of the Iyun is actually, because it's sourced higher, it's able to pull that concept and really give that the wash in a way, okay, and make sure that it's presented to the Makabel accordingly. That was El Sheshamati mi Admur. I don't know these Rashi Tevas, but that refers to the Mittel Rebbe. Okay, and that's what I heard from the Mittel Rebbe. Be'inyan, in the idea, Na'arim Sherotzim Divrei Chassidut, the young guys who really want Chassidus. Okay, they really want it. Although they don't even know anything. Okay, why is it? His kashrus, Pnimius, sheyesh lahem belev. Well, they truly want it because they have this inner connection that they have it in their heart. Okay. V'hu chacham lekashayirtze, right? And this is the chacham when he really wants. What does this mean? What do you mean he really wants? Hainu ratzon pnimi belev. This is the inner desire of the heart, dafka. Shelemala mitam v'das legamri, which is above intellect. Okay. And even above the skull. We're talking about the levels of spiritual makeup of a person. Like the expression is lemala mitam v'das. It uses the word das, by the way. Okay, just pay attention. It's lemala mitam and das. It's above the tam and the das, meaning it's such a level inside our soul that expresses itself in our inner desires of the heart, which is higher than the das as well. So although we are like probably by now in Shar Yichud, we are fully in love with the aspect of das. We're like, oh, das is like, wow, okay? So now he's saying, you know what? Even if you don't have das, you'll have access to even loftier level than das. And every single Jew has that, right? And when we call it like Pnimius Nekudas Halev, right? This is what, this inner aspect of the heart where we feel connected to something. We don't even know what it is. That's what he says over here, right? So the Mittel Rebbe gives an example. They are these guys who they want Chassidus, they want to hear, and these guys are sitting and learning and listening for him for 18 hours, okay? There were guys like this in his time. They have no concept of what's flying there. Okay, I don't know any normal person who could sustain his focus for 18 hours. There's no such person exists on earth. Not that I know of, right? And Mittel Rebbe used to give 18-hour ma'amarim. I don't know when they davened, when they ate. I have no idea. Okay? So, and they were sitting there. Well, why are you sitting here? You don't even understand what he's talking about. I understand Rabbi Hillel Paracher. Okay. He's a tzaddik. He is, by the age of 13, he knew all Sifrei Nigla by heart. He knew all Kabbalah by heart. Yeah, okay, so this guy is sitting and enjoying for 18 hours because, there's something to understand. These young guys are sitting, what they want, go home. You don't even understand. But the Mittel Rebbe says over here, right? They don't know anything. But because of the hiskashrus pnimis sheyesh lahem belev, because of this inner connection that they have in their heart, okay, which is rotzen pnimi belev dafka, and this is the inner desire of the heart dafka, shalemala mitam v'das. It's above intellect. So nobody understands. You walked over to somebody and said, "What do you want? Go home." It's like, no, I'm gonna stay. It doesn't make any sense, right? And this is what we're dealing with, okay? This is this paragraph. So finally, we understand why Chabad called Lubavitch, right? And who was actually the one who chose Lubavitch to be the representation of this movement? It was the Mittel Rebbe. Mittel Rebbe, the one who actually settled in Lubavitch. And after the the passing of the Alter Rebbe, and it was like a whole journey. And that's what Lubavitch is. Lubavitch is not only Chabad. What would we've been studying up until now in Shari Yichud? We were studying the makeup of Chabad. Okay, and it's actually a saying from our Rebbe that Lubavitch starts from Mittel Rebbe, because the Alter Rebbe pretty much discovered, and not only discovered, but he also gave us the tools of Chabad. And the Mittel Rebbe brought it to Lubavitch, right? Brought it this whole idea of Bina Liba. What is this Pnimius Nekudas Halev, and how we can actually access and use it in the service of Hashem. And it's not about intellect, right? It says very clearly, this aspect of Iyun, of analysis, where right away triggers this, every time I think about analytical mind, it's like this wide, forehead, 50 centimeters forehead, right? This analytical guy who sits and does analysis. But interestingly, how he's capable of doing these things is coming through this access to Pnimius Nekudas Halev. Okay, and that's what we're triggering when we doing our analysis. And what I heard from Neria, that some women are already accessing these levels, right? Okay, so we're going to take questions.
So, Sarah, there's a couple of questions in the chat. Sarah says, just wondering, does this whole process apply also to secular Klipat Noga studies?
It's a good question, Sarah. I don't know. But you see, people have obsessions. Like, for example, we're going to take Einstein, for that matter, right? He was learning science. What he wanted, he was really touching something that was so beyond him. This guy had didn't even know math properly himself, as we know. His high school grades were like D, how much he was getting. Yeah, Einstein didn't have simple math properly displayed.
But so you see, I think that sometimes it's easier to understand Klipat Noga and through that come to understand this. So you see some people really studying, going to the details. And I heard, my husband told me that once the Rebbe told somebody in Chassidus he should study, I don't know, maybe Kitzur Shulchan Aruch or something, just like you study law. So sometimes you go and study law, or you study computers, or you study whatever it is, you go into the details, the finest details. I'm trying to understand what you're saying from from Klipat Noga. So is that similar? I'm sorry, I stopped. Mm-hmm. You were starting.
No, 100%. It is very similar. Well, I'll tell you what it is. It's first of all, let's establish what is Klipas Noga. Klipas Noga teaches us about how the world works. Okay, so mechanism of the world is actually, it's not so klipadik. You understand what I mean? Like, these are the laws of nature that Hashem himself created. I didn't create the laws of nature. No, any other Getchik in the world created the laws of nature. This is how the world operates. So let's say somebody, let's say for that Einstein, right? Whatever he discovered, was planted by God. He's just discovering, like, oh, it actually works like this. And the other scientist comes down and says, oh, by the way, this is how it works. They discovering, but they not making it. See, science only discovers what was already there, right? So they're not bringing up anything new. And Bichlal, I mean, with Einstein's being the father of quantum physics, which brought a whole new dimension into science. It's becoming more ruchnistic, you could see right now. Yeah, because Newtonian physics was very, very matter based. When he brought this whole aspect of energy, of understanding energy, and applied it to the actual physical world, that was a whole interesting discovery. And we see how the whole science changed because of this, and the laws that they apply in discovering truth, so quote, right? So 100%, anything that has to do with seichel, you see that some people have obsession. They have obsession to such a point where you don't even, that's what makes a professional. When they completely being swallowed by whatever that chum, whatever that field, exactly, whatever field they discussing, to the point where I once saw an exterminator. Like, we had to deal with some with some mice issues in our school. Usually they come, they have like this, iron face. They just spray, and they go home. That's it. They take your money and case closed. But this guy was talking about mice with such passion. He understood the psychology of a mice. And I was like listening to it. I was completely stunned. I'm like, we're talking about mice, women and mice is not a good combination. But his eyes were shining. And he was talking about it as this was like a whole science behind it, and where to put the traps and how to poison them, and what they think, what they don't think. I don't even know where he gets this information from. Okay, but he was so involved in this, he reached this level. You understand? It's alive. This concept is so alive for him that it's not just like, oh, it's a means to make livelihood. It's more than that. And usually, like, from that I learned, and it was actually very successful. He only took $300, and whatever he did, he never came back. So that's what I'm trying to say. Like a true professional, that it becomes his Pnimius Nekudas Halev in a way.
So
it's like,
yeah. So what we studied today, if I understood it correctly, is you're going from the bottom details and you're starting the Iyun and going up. So the idea is somebody learning medicine. So he heard lectures and everything is very confusing, whatever. But going from the details, all the details, he would reach up to the highest, even higher than what? Than Iyun. Is that than Ratzon? Is that correct?
Yeah, but there's a little nuance here. Okay. It's not through doing the details he will reach. No. The fact that he's doing the Iyun is an indication that he's triggering that point. Why in the world would somebody sit and listen to somebody for 18 hours?
Mm-hmm.
That shows that they're already accessing that level of the neshama. That's what allows them to sit in one place for 18 hours. And some of them were standing, by the way. There are some people who never sit in front of the Rebbe. They were standing for 18 hours. I don't know. They didn't have bathroom needs. I don't know what happened to the body. I really would like to see like what happened to them.
Wow.
But they were completely in a different way. Why? If they would understand, would make sense. Okay, they understand. So the understanding and the interest kicks in and they enjoy it. Here he says these young guys have no knowledge. They shouldn't appreciate what the guy is talking about. So,
but there is the reason.
There is no reason. Exactly. That would be the reason. Amazing. That would be Tam B'das. Yeah, another scientist who coming and listening to Einstein and appreciate what he has to say. But he says there's no reason. There's no apparent reason for why they would stick around and listen for 18 hours. However, we do find such people. There are people like this. We're like, what do you want? What are you doing there? Okay. But
The desire to understand.
But I think it's desire to his kashrus, to connect.
Yeah. Yeah.
They want to connect, but Pnimius sheyesh lahem believe. It's the heart connection. We're talking about literally a heart connection. Actually, I heard from somebody very, very special. She gives a lot of lectures. I did not ask her permission to share her name, but I'll tell you, it was, she was Balas Tshuva. She came when the Rebbe gave, used to say sifis. So forget about it. So she said, I was just so mesmerized to hear the Rebbe speak during the Farbrengens. She didn't care what he was talking about. She was just mesmerized by this experience, and she never missed an opportunity to come and listen. Although there were very weird opportunities, like it would just, would be a siren and everybody would just rush to 770, and she would literally drop everything just to hear what the Rebbe has to say, without even understanding. Like the Rebbe spoke in Yiddish. What's the story? She doesn't even understand not even one word of the Rebbe saying. But that experience is like, I just liked how he was speaking. That's it. That gave her, yeah.
I'm just remembering the scenario of the Rebbe speaking to children at the Lag BaOmer parade and talking on and 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 on in Yiddish. And when questioned, he answered, like, how they don't understand Yiddish. What are they getting? What point, what's the purpose? And the Rebbe would say, their neshama gets it. Their neshama hears me and understands. So sharing that detail.
Absolutely. And isn't this higher than Sechel?
It is.
They are affected. We are affected. I put the notes like me. I feel what you're saying is totally my description. I'm here listening, wanting to hear more and more and more. And I'm connecting to you. I'm connecting to this, but at what level? No. I'm just happy to hear and to know that thing could be understood.
Right. But that's basically, yeah.
Mila, I just want to ask two clarifying questions. I'll ask them together and then you can answer them separately. One is, it's a question you asked in the beginning. Up until now, we've seen that everything that is higher, like the Ratzon is higher than the brains. And so we see that it's the source of something. But now you're talking about the heart, which is lower, and you're saying that it's higher than the skull, which is literally higher, but somehow it's higher. So that's my first question. And the second question is to clarify, when we talk about the heart, we often think about the midot, and we think about the animal soul, and we think about all of these things. Can you clarify the difference between, like Miriam mentioned in the chat, like something like chavas halavavos, the duties of the heart, and what we're talking about here, which is the inner point of the heart, which is oneg. I think that needs clarification. So those are two questions.
Beautiful. So I'll tell you, Tzivi asked who didn't have simple math properly. Einstein. He didn't. I think he failed his high school in math or something like that. So you could go to fact checks, but it was really interesting how that happened. What do we have to do in order to open the heart? And what does it mean, the duties of the heart? So here it is. There are many different mamarim that I actually, came across where it talks about it, that the main point, what's the main point of the body? It's my heart. It's in the center of the body. Okay, everything else serves our heart. It's not our brain. Our brain is only an intermediate between our soul and our heart. The main gilui of Elokus is going to be in the heart, not in the brain. The brain is a tool to the heart. Okay, so now to answer your question, we're talking about the level where there is no animal soul. We're talking about the level where there is no bad exists, per se. There's no klipa in that level. We're talking about oneg, which is the first expression of the essence. The first expression of the essence is oneg. And we are jumping many chapters ahead, right? And so if I'm understanding your questions correctly, how something lower than the heart? But we're not talking about, at this point, we're not talking about the heart the way we know heart as an organ. You know, we're talking about Pnimius, Nekudas, Halev. We're talking about this point in the heart where it's the essence of who we are. You know, we feel it in our heart. You know, it's not like, you know, I feel it in my brain. We don't say that. You know, it's an expression of my heart. Yeah, nobody says like, you know, something really, really important for me. It's an expression of my mind. No, that's not important for you. Like in our understanding in the world, it's hadvarim hayotzim min halev, right? The words that are coming from your heart. What does this mean? But these are the worldly expressions, and they're usually being used because this is the Metzius. This is what we find ourselves, is that when something is very, very important to us, we are emotionally aroused to that thing. It really matters to us. It's not just like, you know, a cold, intellectual thing. And in Chassidus, the heart is that's what basically what's the whole person is about, is the heart. So I'm not sure if I'm answering your question. Let me know, Nuriya. Let's.
I think the question was, if the heart is so important and you actually see it among people, you see very hearty people, or hartzike Menschen, as you would say it in Yiddish. So I think that what I read from what Miriam's question is, how do we affect our heart to be that way? How do we get our heart to be that way?
I think we are at the stage where we need to understand what, right? What is it? What? We know what. Okay, so Chassidus is not only to make us smart, but to make us actually, you know, open up our heart. That's what we need to, you know, to do. Now, the whole process is the process of hisbonenus, is which we just, you know, scratching the surface at the moment. So I think what he accomplished up until now is to remove the perception of analysis as being cold brain activity. And I think he successfully does it, yeah, because every time when I use the word analysis, even till now, it turns on a certain picture in my brain, which is not Bina Liba. You know, picture Bina Liba is like, you see this person is, you know, hard sticky mensch, as you said, right? It's like this blah blah. And when I say analysis, you're like, wait a second, what this has to do with analysis? It actually has nothing to do with analysis, right? And you're like, what are you talking about? And that's how removed they are. And that's why he uses the word, an expression, ne'elam. It's hidden. We don't see a connection, right? Until we actually engage in the process of Iyun. Right? It's not something that you could right away draw and say, oh, you know, let's say I would tell you, like, what's the answer? How do I reveal the Pnimius Nekudas Halev? How can I do it? right? I could tell you, you know what? Just take $100, go and feed hungry kids. You and I give you this suggestion, you're like, oh yeah, there is actually a connection. Yeah, it's a connection. Sure, you take $100, you feed hungry people, and I don't know how much you could feed hungry people in New York with $100, but okay, but you could feed some people. Okay. So you get this money and you feed and you feel good, and you know that will open up your heart. You see, Al Pi Seichel, it makes sense to you, right? But when I tell you you want to open up your mind, do Iyun and Chassidus, you like analysis in Chassidus, opening my heart. And that's what the Rebbe says. It's lemala mitam v'das legamre. It's above any understanding. It doesn't even make sense, right? The person might say like, no, go do mitzvahs, go do mochesed, you know, I don't know, meditate and, I don't know, do emotion code or something like that, right? Which is all great tools. But when we're talking about Pnimius Nekudas Halev, right, we need to get advice from professionals, right? Because I don't know how to open up people's hearts. Like I'm not an expert in heart opening sessions or something like that. So when we hear from, you know, the Rebbe that's actually suggesting that's how you open, is through Iyun in Chassidus. Now, does that make sense? I don't know how much sense it makes, but one thing I could tell you, the effect on me, you know, it was a tremendous effect. You know, I think Naria could mention for herself, like they started doing, you know, new things and what effect it has on us. And yeah, I guess it's, yeah.
I saw that Sylvia wanted to say something. So I wonder if you could give it some space.
Sure.
Sorry. So a few points. One on the question that I asked that was perhaps not understood, and the other on the connection between the heart and the brain and how does it make sense. I'm thinking about how Tanya says that the Nefesh Elokis is in the right side of the heart. I'm thinking about how the left side of the left brain is analytical, logical, the right brain is emotional. I'm just thinking about Bina, how it, does the right brain have verbal capacity? I know thoughts are in words, but is it coming from the left brain, which is logical, or from the right brain, which is more emotional and visual, perhaps? And also, I was so excited when I read and saw, maybe I think was a video, about how there are neurons in the heart, which means there's communication from brain to heart. And I know from the work I do, which actually sources in Chassidus, that our emotions are directly connected to our thoughts, which are coming from our brain. So I don't actually totally understand the complete workings, but all those things are clues. And that's my contribution. And about my question, yes, the subject is Einstein not having simple maths properly, but then the concept is Einstein is having simple maths from the source, like from the source down. Does it come to the simple maths that they teach in school? So if he's not getting the simple maths as they presented in school, maybe the simple maths is not coming from the deep source that Einstein is somehow connecting to. So my question is really, who doesn't have simple maths properly, the school or Einstein?
No, but eventually he got his math straight, for sure. But he had problems with simple equations. And that's usually, I mean, the question that is asked, how was he able to even get to the heights of his perception and understanding, to what he was able to bring down into the science world, if he himself had difficulty with, you know, simple equations in high school? And I think the answer was given is that he was out of the box thinker to begin with. He had the capacity. So what was presented to him up until then, it was just the Bina. You understand what I mean? You're just like, this is what you do, this is what you get, this is what you do, this is what you get.
He wasn't connecting to that.
It wasn't connecting to that because he was transmitting a broader, you know, things, and he just couldn't, his kalim were not made for that, you know? So But I'm sure after his discoveries, he didn't have problem with equations. It's not like, he brought down over everything what he brought down and still had issues with equations. No, he didn't, because now he went to the source, and now these levels were no longer, hindering his development in math or whatever else he was doing. No.
But I think
But yeah, the way it was.
that can also answer the question that Sarah asked right in the beginning is this process appropriate? Like, is it the same process for secular studies? And it can be, but
That what I'm trying to say, Neria, there are no secular studies.
no, but just let me say to the end, what Sylvia is asking is, sometimes when you learn something, it's in Bina, there's an explanation, but there's no chokhmah, there's no real point, there's no inner point of truth in that Bina. So when you unwrap it, you can't go to the source. But if you're studying science, which is based on Hashem's reality, then you can go to the source. But if not, you can be wasting your time, like, for example, studying poetry, a certain person's poetry, unless they've put a real truth into their poem. You can do as much Iyun as you like. You're not going to go to a true source. So that the method is correct. But that's why, when you choose Torah, and also you choose which Torah to learn, it'll either take you to your Koach HaMaskil, or it won't, because it doesn't have enough truth embedded in the explanation. And that's the problem when we study too many secondary sources, or like thirdly sources. When somebody has already processed it, they could be processing it really so that you can't unwrap it and go into the chokhmah of it, because they've mixed up too many errors into it. And the same with secular. Yeah.
Right.
We need to go into breakout rooms, even though we're having an interesting discussion, or we don't. But I think that we should.
Maria.
Hi.
Hi, can I just, I was listening to this conversation like a little bit before, how you were asking what your two questions based on if the mind is really over the heart, why would the heart be the focus? So a little bit of a different, maybe not different, but it's actually
that was not the question. That's not what we're discussing. We're not discussing Moach Shalit al Halev at all. So I'm stopping you, because unless you're talking to the point, which is what we're talking about here, which is Bina Liba, if you're coming in from a different angle, then it's not appropriate for this discussion. So if you heard the entire discussion, you can go forward. But if you're talking about Moach Shalit al Halev, it's a different point entirely.
Yeah, I heard the discussion. I guess there was just an interesting article that spoke about this whole idea of that there's an outer layer of the heart and an inner layer, and the outer layer of the mind and inner layer of the mind. And it was an interesting point that it was brought across. Actually, I don't know if you know Nair Manusi, so he had an interesting article. So he was explaining that the only way to get to the inner point of the heart is through the mind, but that then even there's like a 4-stage, so to speak, levels. There's the outer layer of the heart, and the outer layer of the mind must rule over the outer layer of the heart. The outer layer of the heart is the emotional experience we have. It's very like chaotic. It goes up and down like the rhythm of a heart. Where the outer layer of the mind is cold and analytical. So that has to, in order for that, the ruler has to be over that outer layer. But in order to get to the inner layer of the heart, you need to go through the cold internet. What's the inner layer of the heart? That is the still small voice, he said. It's like, it's a place where you could have Ruach HaKodesh, because it's quiet, still called the Mamadaka. That's what's the inner point of the heart. Whereas the inner point of the mind, he said, but then he said that's even not the end goal, because there's an inner point of the mind. And the inner point of the mind is seeing the Elokos and everything. So it's whereas the outer layer of the mind is very cold and analytical. Actually, the inner layer of the mind is very, it's if you see the okus and anything, it's not cold at all, and it's very full of life, and it's so I just thought it was, for me, it's a much longer article, and I'm making it much shorter, and he brought it from a story in the Talmud, but to me it gave me a lot of clarity that it was a very interesting article. So I just wanted to share that. I don't know if that's helpful. Could be it's not, but
Sure, it definitely is. Yeah.
so yeah, he brought it from a longer story of like the Gemara where they say like Tana asked the boy which way to Yerushalayim, and he says there's one long short way and there's a short long way, and he took the short long way and he comes back to the boy and he's all angry. He's like, wait, you told me that this would be the short way. The boy says, I told you the short and long way. And what it's coming to, like, the deeper explanation of the story is that if you want to get to it starts with, if you want to get to the inner point of the heart, if you're going to go right away to the emotional level, you're going to only reach the orchards. You're going to only reach the external layers of the city, but you're never going to be able to enter actually into the city, because that you're going to get caught up in the outer layer of the heart. Like he was explaining how both of them are, the inner layer is different than the outer layer. So in order to really reach the enter, you have to go the long way, which is contemplation. And like the Tanya talks about, like the short,
Right.
long way is contemplation. And then in order to reach the inner layer of the mind, you need to go from the inner point of the heart and go back up to it's just, I don't know if,
Yeah, that's beautiful, Chaya. It's definitely, very relevant to what we're talking about. The to the Pnimius Nekudas Halev lays in Iyun, lays in the process of Iyun.
What would you say, Mile, is the inner point of the mind? Is it Chokhmah?
No, it's the process of Iyun that triggers. The inner point of the mind is the ability to see the Pnimius.
Yeah.
It's a Pnimius is you could on many levels you could see that what he described. Remember, it doesn't take away from the fact that when you do Iyun, that's the external part of the mind, right? You reach into Amakasadas and Mamik. That's the inner dimension already. That's the middle line. So that's one shortcut. I don't know if it's shortcut. I guess it's a long cut. Whatever, whichever way you do it. But then it's an inner heightened perception, because ultimately mind and heart. I think this is what Tzivia was trying to bring out with her thing. For sure, there are neurons in the heart. There are neurotransmitters that actually, in a perfect system. Yeah, let's say we are, what we need to be in a perfect system. There is that rhythm, the inner rhythm, the connection of the heart and the mind, and they are in constant sync and connection. And if we're able to reveal that inner rhythm, so that's how neshama is. It's like a whole chachma of how neshama enlivens the body.
So, Deborah Leah, can you share that article with us?
That's where we could actually, perceive and feel. There's no obstacles. There is no Meitzar Garon there. It's a straight connection that we experience.
No, yeah, I could
But
definitely.
because we have these, crooked perceptions of the outer mind, which is our analytical mind, okay, we get stuck of what we think the reality is. And that's why we experience chaos in our hearts, where one moment we're like this, the other moment we're like that. But once we're able to, answer the inner rhythm of creation, then everything feels aligned. So then what we perceive, what the mind perceives, the truth of perception is being reflected in the heart. There's no disconnect, basically. That's when we, conquer our Amalek. because Amalek is the one that this beheading.
I actually wanted to ask Sylvia. Yeah, so Dvorale, if you could put that article in the chat, I think that would be really great. We would enjoy that. And thank you for bringing that. I wanted to ask Sylvia, you can say no to this, but I think that on the last Tuesday night, from what I understood, through our process of Iyun, and then, a deeper level of Iyun, from the way that you described what you experienced, I wonder if you didn't have some experience of Bina Liba, of this experience of Oneg, where the concept, it wasn't conceptual anymore, but it became an experience. Would you share some of that, or you don't feel that it's appropriate?
It was a long time ago. There was a Shabbos in between. Just if you remind me, like I don't even remember. I know that we were contemplating a long time on
Omek.
Omek, yeah. Oh, we were looking at the nothing, the Iyun, right? The Iyun of those three examples of space in the corner, time, Bina Shamashos, and the third one was between teacher and student, that place where there's nothing. And then my experience was how in that space of nothing it wasn't nothing, it was infinity. It was a place of creation, something new, because the corner is actually such a something. It's so an intrinsic part of construction and reality. And so is Bina Shamashos. I was thinking of the Mishnah, how many things were created. There were miraculous things that were created, Bina Shamashos, the first Bina Shamashos, right? The mouth of the donkey, Bilam's donkey, the mouth of the well, things that were miraculous. And then between teacher and student, in that space where there's nothing, there's the possibility, there's infinite possibility. And that was what came up for me. So what is your question?
So the way that you described it, I got a sense, maybe I'm wrong, that it went beyond just ideas. And it seemed to me like you had an actual experience of that space. You didn't just think about the Omek, that space of transition and of infinity, but it sounded like the way you were describing it, that you had an experience of it, like almost like a physical experience of what an Omek is. And to me, that would speak to what we're discussing now, which is that through the process of Iyun, you come to the experience of it, which is literally you feel it in your body, that you sense, you don't think about what is an Omek, but you experience the Omek, for example.
Does that relate perhaps to the concept of chush, which is where you use your senses? There's a sensitivity, there's a sensory experience, which I believe I had, of like a little bit of visualization and of imagination and expansiveness on ideas. I don't know where that would fall, but yes, I did have an experience.
I think that that's the Bina Liba, because there's also an experience of pleasure usually in that you touch. Or is that pushing it a bit far?
No, I don't know, but my question is, how does that connect to the right brain? Because I once watched a TED Talk or listened to a TED Talk about life really happens in the right brain. The left brain is structure, it's gevura, but life and love and emotion and experience happens in the right brain. So, and that's still, it comes back to my curiosity about the right side of the heart, the left side of the heart. Where is the seat? The nefesh elokis is in the right side of the heart. How does that connect to the right brain and the experience of the right brain? And I don't know the answers. I'm just asking questions. But it was fascinating. And the question I had then from the Tuesday night is how does that relate? Because you suggested that I might have had a real experience of hitbonenus. And if I did, doesn't all of this go back to Shema and how we're meant to be in saying Shema and our connection with unity and oneness and the Eibishter? That's my question from Tuesday night.
So one of the women, actually, it was interesting, I won't say who from thinking about the Omek, she came to an experience of oneness. Like had this, because the Omek is the transition place where you can begin to experience the oneness, the infinity, as you described it, that place where, you know, we are all one and you touch something above the limitation. So I guess it depends on the level of Iyun, how far one goes into that space of sensing the oneness.
The experience you offered us reminded me of the instruction of how to be when we get to the end of Shema, how to concentrate on and envision an experience when you say Echad. I'm sure you're familiar with that.
Right.
That the Aleph, you imagine oneness, and the Ches is the seven heavens and this world with dimension, and then the Daled, seven heavens, and the Daled is dimension, where you get a sense of landing on solid ground where there's at least four directions, and that experience of contemplating, spending time on, expanding on that echad is that's what I understand as hitbonenus, or how it applies when you say the Shema. I would love, that's a question, I guess.
Mila? You're muted.
Yeah, that's how we open the paragraph, is through Shema. Yeah, it's the to understand what is his bonus is the Shema. So definitely, you know, it's something that we. Here's the thing: the actual study of his bonus supposed to bring us to experiencing it, and that's what Bina Liba is. Bina Liba is that when whatever that thing we are studying becomes an experience. It's not an intellectual anymore. It's an experience, and it's fully revealed in a heart.
You mean like a visceral experience?
No visual experience, no.
Visceral.
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 You experience it in your body.
In a full body, yeah.
Yeah.
I have a technical question.
With all its senses, with all the senses, because when we experience pleasure, there is no part of us that doesn't experience pleasure. It's everywhere. It's just, through neurotransmitters, they just go through, down, up, down. It's like a whole experience. It's not about it. It is it. And obviously there are levels in it, in that experience.
So can I ask a technical question?
Sure.
I want to check this. Earlier you said that the real Nefesh Elokis experience, somehow, not enough, I'm using the correct terminology, experience or what, is in the heart. And how does that jive with that the Makam Mishkan HaNefesh Elokis, the Mishkan Nefesh Elokis, according to Tanya, is in the right side of the brain? That's one right side. And the second question, I have two questions. And the second one is,
you mean Gitti, right side of the heart or right side of the brain?
Brain. Mishkan
I didn't see that.
is in the brain. That's clear.
No, brain, yeah. Mishkan, you're talking about not in right side of the brain. Do you know where it says specifically right side of the brain, or you mean right side of the
So
heart?
I offhand not, I would have to open a Tanya and find it. That's one thing. And the other thing, and then it comes down, and it comes down into, makes its way down, and we get it to make its way down into the heart and flare up into actual emotions. And then it's supposed to take over the left side and so on and so forth. That's how it conquers the system. That's one question I have. And the other thing is, we're having
So
this.
get you 1 second. Where is the question?
So no, so you were saying that it's the place of the Nefesh Elokis where it rests is in the right side of the heart, which is not incorrect, but I want to know if the Mishkan Nefesh Elokis, according to what we've been learning, is actually in the brain. Okay, nothing. That's not.
And also the right side of the heart. It comes from Tanya.
Yeah. So it's not critical to anything. I just brought it up. But here's my other
what
question.
I said, yeah, I think what I probably triggered the question is that I said that the main point is the heart. The main point is to elevate the heart.
Right,
It's not to enlighten the brain. Meaning it's in the brain because in Kuntrasei Spilos, the Rebbe talks about it, is that because of the midas of the Nefesh HaBahamis are not elevated, okay, that are mainly in the left side of the heart, where the way the main blood flows. The Rebbe suggests that that's the reasons why the midas of Nefesh Elokis are unable to reveal themselves. However, the Chabad of Nefesh Elokis are dwelling in the brain, okay, through the Nefesh HaSichlis. For some reason, it's not that a big deal for it, okay? So through his bonanus, we could somehow reveal Nefesh Elokis, the midas of the Nefesh Elokis to shine in the heart.
Yeah,
that's
right.
the model.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Okay, so the other question I have about this whole using the right and left. So we're talking about right and left brain as used as a tool for understanding linear learning versus maybe visual or holistic kind of view. So how does that connect or join in with the concept again that I'm bringing up before, that Tanya talks about the right side of the brain and the left side of the brain, that the left side of the brain is where the negative thoughts come up from the left side of the heart. And so they come into the brain, pushed up there from the heart, whereas the Nefesh Elokis, its thought process begins in the brain on the right side, and from the brain where we have to maybe we have to generate the thoughts that kind of we are more in charge, and then we push that positive thoughts down into our right side of our heart. So the framework that I've always, so we have two frameworks here. I want to know if these two frameworks are like actually in the brain. Are these the same centers? It sounds like more one is a spiritual center and that one is an operative center.
Right. So I'll tell you what it is. It's in Chassidus, there is two types of understanding, right? There's one type of access we have during Golus, right? Meaning even in spiritual world, we have, no, Amelia, give me a minute. There is the paradigms of Golus, where we have our limits, what we can access and what we cannot access. And in that paradigm, what you're saying, it's the model, meaning we generate the thought in our right brain, in our left brain, whatever that is, and we, as you use the right expression, we push it down to the heart. Right? It's actually a conscious process of developing our emotions. and making sure that they're aligned with our source. That happens only when we do something which is called b'chein, right? Yeah, I'm sorry. I guess I was saying something very important, right? Now, that's the framework of Golus. Now, the framework of Geula is that we don't need to push down anything to anybody. You know, we need to be busy with Avodah Samaychin. Avodah Samaychin is that I'm fully engaging in mind process. I don't want to call it mental process, but it's a mind process to know God. Okay, and I'm not worried about how it's going to land in my heart. And in that Avodah Samaychin Sicha, Rebbe says very clearly is that I don't care about my midas in a way. Like, without, I'll show you the exact way it says, you know, later on in a group when I find the Sicha, but it's actually, I actually underlined it. I feel lo nagea la'avodas hamidas shalai. It's not concerning to my midas. I'm not worried about my midas because it seems that from everything else, what we learned from the Rebbe Tavshin on Aleph, Tavshin on Beis Sicha, is that there are certain things are removed, certain boundaries are expanded already, and we have access to higher realities, to higher perceptions. And when we do that, we can actually move one direction. We don't need to push anything on our heart. It will be automatically reflected in our heart. So when we're busy knowing God and really going deeper and deeper, we will eventually access our Bina Liba. And once Pnimius Nekudas Halev opens up, there's absolutely no way that emotions of our heart are not going to be elevated. The Rebbe guarantees that they're going to be elevated mimela, automatically.
Right. Mila, it's also what you're saying makes me think like this, that, you know, the Golus circulation system, our spiritual circulation system, the playing field is the mind-heart interaction. But the Geula arena, the whole playing field is taking place in the mind, and there's a whole circulation system going on there as we're unfolding in the Sha'ar Yichud, and with all the different ups and downs of it. And that's where the center, the spotlight is, and that's where all the action is taking place. Right. I still don't know, though, if this, if the right-left, you know, the whole idea of right-left brain, the way we use it, but, you know, artistic versus linear, is the right-left that's talked about lav dafka. Lav dafka at all.
Because you see, it's not, I don't think people should perceive left brain as something negative. It's like my left hand, you know, it's like the body is not going to be the body if we don't have all its components working in harmony. They're just, you know, basics like we can.
Did you hear negative? Linear is not a negative word.
No, not negative on your perceptions in general. Like I heard also, I believe, you know, that the whole life happens. We don't know, everything works together. Yeah. His bonus takes place. Yeah. And we're also going to talk about, you know, Pnimius Bina later on in chapters where he brings that inner dimension of Bina. And I think it's important to keep in mind.
But
the inner dimension is the Omek HaMusag. You know, that by accessing that, that's the door to inner world. You know, that's the door to inner mind. I think this is what the Borleya was bringing out. Is the inner mind that we want to access.
Right. That was very fascinating what you were sharing. But I'm thinking now it's like, instead of it now, it's like more like horizontal. It's the mind and the heart. The mind being above the heart, and kind of that's how we play out now our Aveda. And what you're describing is much more like a vertical. There's the right versus the left. There's a lot of discussion that way, but also hierarchies. I'm not only one way, but maybe has a different, what's the word for it? Not shape, but orientation or whatever.
Right.
think-
I look the orientation of inner out.
Always in or out is going to be an orientation. Always, even in Golis,
Right.
it's in and out. Anyways, I just want to say that all my years, I remember even I was an elementary school student, every time I bumped into these words, Nekudas, Pnimius, Halev, I was so intrigued. And I nudged people and said, explain me what this is. What does this mean? Like where? What does this mean? I want to know where it is, what it is, how to access it. So every time you mention this term, I just have like this inner tainug of just hearing that we're discussing this. So thank you very much.
Exactly. That's what it is, because that's what it is. It's inner tainug. We're soon next week, we're going to go into the whole hierarchy. What's where, who is where, what's going on, you know. B'ezrat Hashem, we're going to create some visuals for everybody to see and kind of, you know, make sense out of it, at least visually.
Sounds very exciting. Thank you.
I just want to speak to something that Gitti was saying. I don't know if this is exactly what you were referring to, but perhaps we have been too literal with right brain and left brain.
That's
And
what
saying that right brain is just images and left brain is words,
Right.
because
right.
you know, we've done some Iyun with images. You know, we're working in the left brain, but with a right brain mentality, meaning we brought that image so that people could see it, which means that they're using a right brain function in a way, but we're still doing Iyun. You know, we're just trying to understand something. So it's not so kind of black and white. It's not like we were, you know, like in the Rochav of
Okay.
Chochmah or anything.
Well, it's
So
a parallel.
it's kind of, yeah, there's a process. I don't know how to say it exactly, but it's not so clear cut.
You know,
Yeah.
just you can say that there's a parallel in an analogy, and it actually works out well in the brain because we do call these parts left and right. But and even if we use it as a mushal, it doesn't mean that every part of the mushal is going to make sense, or the example that we're using. Just like the sun, the ma'ar and the or is not going to be exact mushal for Hashem, but just using properties that we relate to. So maybe.
Or we could even say that it's the Chochmah of Bina, that we were using a Chochmah function in Bina, which is like Rochav of Chochmah. We were broadening it. That would make more sense to me.
But you are showing two sides of the brain, though, in the diagrams.
Yeah, but I'm just saying by showing a diagram, we're using a right brain function, something
Right.
that will appeal more to people who are more
so-
right brain function, images.
Oh,
But we're still working with the left brain. So I'm saying maybe we were using the Chochmah in Bina, but we're not
Right.
in like a high level of Chochmah. We're still doing Iyun, but we're using like a Chochmah function within Bina. Does
right.
that
So now,
that-
now
yeah.
the question is, in the diagram, is the diagram based on what the Shariach is saying, that this is on the left and this is the right? Probably, no?
Yeah, whatever we did on a diagram is based on the text.
Right. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So Esther writes in the chat, I heard from neuroscience that this theory of left and right brain is not actual. In reality, the whole brain is working all the time. The experience is something more holistic, as everything we are trying to say here. Yeah, you know, things happen in an instant, but when you're learning about them, we learn it in a linear way.
Why? But the right brain, the left brain interaction, I don't know if it works, you know, also the way we have this concept, but the way we learn is we keep zigzagging back and forth and bringing both types of brain process together to give us a harmonized experience. So there are two types of processes, that's for sure. Like as known, people on the spectrum of autism don't have that harmony, and that's why they can be brilliant with tons of facts and information, but they don't know how to integrate with the rest of what the brain needs to make a harmonized balance.
Right. I think it also refers to people have dominance. It's not that, a person doesn't have, all two parts of the brain work together, but there are some people who are left brain dominant, and there are those who are right brain dominant. So there is dominance in an awareness.
Oh, well, one
And
second.
it's known, and it's also known that different neshamas are coming from different spheres.
Right.
So let's say if a person is coming, from Chochmah of Atzilus, let's say, right, like Moshe Rabbeinu's neshama, the experience and the awareness and the reality and the whole makeup of the body is going to look a little bit different than if somebody is coming from the Bina of Atzilus, let's say, or somebody's coming from the Chesed of Atzilus, and somebody's coming from the Gevura of Atzilus. For example, that somebody's coming from the Gevura line will probably need mostly the Misnagid. It's brought down that they need something to bounce off.
Or
whether somebody's coming from the Chesed is coming, from a flow. The other one, he needs something to push back from. The self, because the Gevuras don't have a sense of self. They only know what they are not. Chesed is more yesh. The Gevuras is ayin.
why,
So
but they
why they
speak of
need a misnagid? Because misnagid will show them what they are not. Oh, my misnagid is so and so. I am not like that. Whereas the chesed, they have more sense of self, understanding who they are. So it's more the Seder Socialist is more complex than what we think. Let's put it this way. We're taking in this course, one thing at a time, and it's hard to generalize based on the little knowledge that so far we got. So I think what we, suggesting, and Naria mentioned this many times, let's avoid doing a bechain. What we did for the last 15 minutes is that we did bechains in terms of like, we're trying to take a grain and bake a cake.
let's not concretize, you're saying.
Exactly, nothing, because what the information was given with these 17 chapters is
Paragraphs.
it's 17 paragraphs, right? 17 paragraphs is like it's literally not a drop in a big ocean, and therefore we don't have enough information to conclude yet. We didn't even finish the first chapter.
70 paragraphs, I don't know how much closer I'll be, but we'll see.
Well, there are 50-something chapters of of Shara Yichud. Definitely by the end of first chapter we will have some yesh, but we are still in the process of discovery, and we could just relax and flow with it and allow the process to do its work.
I also
But definitely,
think, sorry, Mila, you wanted to finish?
no, go ahead.
I think that also when we talk about something like Bina Liba, it's until we experience it, it's just a concept. And all of these things are concepts until we're able to really have an experience of it. And
Right.
what it seems to me is that the text is telling us that if you want to experience Bina Liba, which is, maybe it's the highest level, I don't know yet. It's the highest level I've heard about so far. And it's oneg, it's a great pleasure.
Yes, it is.
One can do it through Iyun, but through, like real Iyun, a real process of working with the text, analyzing it, really putting in Yigia, which is Iyun, is just this.
It is Yigia, yeah.
And then when we, we'll come to an experience of what he's talking about, not just see it as words or explanations or concepts. We'll actually be able to, even if it's just a moment, like a glimpse of something that you feel in your body. And even me saying this is something that is just a concept unless you've experienced it. You know, so, but this is the process. And, you know, what we do here, I keep saying this, but what we do here in the class is something. But if you really want to touch this place of Bina Liba, and, you know, maybe through other texts, people have done that, it requires Iyun outside of the class to do that. But that's what he's telling us, that it's possible through Iyun, through really just working with this text, with the ideas, and to sit with it and to know it, first of all, and then to kind of stare at it, that you'll begin to experience it and not just have it as a concept.
Right.
And
Yeah,
that is as Devorah Leah was saying, that's the long, short way. We are used to mainly the short, long way, which is that we bring things down very quickly into a bechein, into our heart, and we never quite get to the city. We get close.
We get lost in the orchard.
You get lost. Yeah.
Oh, it's
And
an
this
experience,
is
but
the
it
long
doesn't.
way. It's a harder way, but you
Right.
get there.
It doesn't go so deep. You know, as much, the more you put in, the from Shach Nagamla, the more you invest, the more you get out of it. So we're putting in strenuous application, and we're going to get somewhere. I just want to say before, what I was doing actually, and realized I was not trying to concretize. On the contrary, I was trying to point out that maybe we have to divest more instead of getting so stuck into those forms, to realize that they're just an offering. They're not actually the whole idea, the perfect analogy.
Yeah, for sure. Every mashal is not fully, you know, represent in all its aspects the actual nimshal.
Right.
That's why a lot of times, not a lot of time, almost all the time, they give many mashalim. And this is what the third chapter of Shara Yichud, where he gives 4 mashalim on Etzem V'Spashtus and 5 mashalim of Halev V'Gilui, and why we need to have all of them is to understand how, you know, Hashem creates the world. We give all these mashalim is just because each mashal brings out one part of the.
It's a window. Each mashal is a window.
And by analyzing the mashalim, we're like, oh, now there are 5 mashalim we need to put together.
Well, every time you mention a mashal when you're teaching the material, the both of you in this class, I'm thrilled because it's so helpful. Without the mashal, I'm nowhere. You know, I need that mashal. That's part of Iyun, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Iyun is analyzing the mashalim. Why this mashal was chosen, not the other mashal was chosen, and why this and that, and I'm going back and forth.
Oh, so we
And at
just
one
did Iyun.
point, yeah.
Thank you very
Let me
much.
say there. Well,
Okay.
thank you. So we had a very nice, big breakout room.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Ginsburg. Yeah, 4 mashalim of Etzem V'Spashtus and 5 mashalim of Halev V'Gilui.